This is Lagos, a city that's often described as pure,
Hello,
unrelenting chaos. Endless traffic, crowded markets, a skyline that shifts from gleaming towers to makeshift rooftops within the same block. And while that picture isn't entirely wrong, Lagos is actually far more complex and structured than most people give it credit for. Lagos State is home to roughly 15 to 22 million people, making it not just Nigeria's largest city, but one of the largest urban areas on the entire African continent. Some estimates even place Lagos among the top 5 populous cities in the world. That might sound unbelievable for a city that most outsiders associate with gridlock and disorder, but it tells us something important about how this place was built and how it actually works. Unlike Abuja, Nigeria's purpose-built capital, where everything was planned from scratch, Lagos grew organically, chaotically, and at breathtaking speed. The result is a city that feels impossible to fully understand, even to the people who live there. So what's actually going on here, and how did Lagos become Nigeria's most confusing city? To understand how Lagos became the city it is today, we need to go back to the mid-1800s. At that point, Lagos was a relatively small Yoruba settlement and trading port on a cluster of islands along the Atlantic coast. But everything changed when the British arrived. In 1861, Britain annexed Lagos, turning it into a colonial port and commercial hub. The deep natural harbour made it a critical gateway for trade, first in enslaved people, then in palm oil, cotton, and cocoa. Infrastructure followed commerce. Roads, railways, and port facilities were built not to serve the local population, but to extract resources and move goods outward. By 1914, when the British amalgamated the northern and southern protectorates into what became Nigeria, Lagos was already the undisputed commercial capital of Nigeria. People flooded in from across the country, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, and dozens of other groups, all chasing the economic opportunity. The city's population exploded as a result of this. After Nigerian independence in 1960, Lagos became the nation's capital, and that status accelerated growth even further. By the 1970s, the oil boom transformed the economy and poured money into Lagos. New neighborhoods expanded outward onto the mainland. Infrastructure struggled to keep up. The city spread faster than it could be planned. Part of what makes Lagos so uniquely confusing is its geography. The original city was built on a series of islands: Lagos Island, Victoria Island, Ikoyi, separated from the mainland by lagoons and creeks. As the city grew, it expanded onto the mainland through bridges and causeways, creating a city that is literally fragmented by water. Today, Lagos State is divided into two major zones, the island and the mainland, and this division shapes almost everything about the daily life. Island residents often speak of the mainland as if it's a different world entirely, and vice versa. Crossing the Kata Bridge or the Third Mainland Bridge isn't just a commute, it's a psychological shift. And then there's the political geography. Lagos State contains 20 local government areas, each with its own administrative structure. But within those LGAs, you also have 37 local council development areas, a second tier of local government created to bring administration closer to communities. So when people say Lagos, they might mean the island, the state, one of its dozens of distinct neighborhoods, or the entire sprawling metro area. It depends entirely on who's asking. What most outsiders don't realize is that the Lagos they imagine isn't a single place. Places like Ikeja, Surulere, Lekki, Agege, and Badagry are all part of Lagos State, but they feel like completely different cities. Each has its own character, its own economy, its own pace of life. Lekki, for example, feels almost like a planned coastal suburb with gated estates, shopping malls, and wide roads, at least by Lagos standards. Meanwhile, Agege on the mainland is dense, loud, and commercial, with market stalls lining every street. Mushin feels entirely different again, tightly packed, historically working class, and politically energetic. And Badagry, near the border with Benin Republic, still carries the weight of its history as a major slave trade departure point, with a quiet, almost contemplative atmosphere that feels nothing like the rest of Lagos. You can drive for 30 minutes in Lagos and feel like you've crossed into a different country, not because you've left city limits, but because the character of each area is so dramatically distinct. Zoning and land use also varies wildly. On Lagos Island, you'll find some of Nigeria's tallest buildings and most expensive real estate right next to historic colonial era buildings. A few bridges away in parts of the mainland, the dominant structures are bungalows, face me I face you tenements, and informal settlements. These contrasts aren't accidental. They are the direct result of decades of uneven investment, colonial legacy, and rapid unplanned growth. Despite looking chaotic and unplanned, Lagos is one of the densest cities on earth. Certain areas of Lagos, particularly on the island and in inner mainland neighborhoods, have population densities that rival or exceed cities like Mumbai and Dhaka. But this density is hidden in plain sight. From the outside, Lagos doesn't look dense the way Manhattan looks dense. There are very few skyscrapers outside the business districts. Instead, the density lives in the details. The Face Me I Face You compounds where dozens of families share a single building around a central corridor. The informal settlements stacked along waterways. The markets where every square meter is occupied. Makoko, for instance, the famous floating slum built on stilts over Lagos Lagoon, houses tens of thousands of people in a space that most cities would consider unusable. It looks like disorder from above, but it has its own internal economy, social structure, and logic. This is Lagos's version of the missing middle. Not the courtyard apartments of Los Angeles, but the informal adaptive housing that absorbs millions of people that formal planning never accounted for. Of course, no discussion of Lagos is complete without talking about traffic. Lagos has one of the worst traffic situations of any city in the world. The city's road network was never designed for anything close to its current population. In some areas, the traffic is so severe that it has its own name. Lagosians simply call it the go slow. Like Los Angeles, Lagos's transportation infrastructure was largely built around assumption of car use, except that in Lagos, the formal public transit system barely exists. The city's rail network is minimal, and the BRT bus system introduced in the 2000s covers some major corridors but is nowhere near sufficient for a city of this size. Instead, the Danfo, the iconic yellow minibus, and the Okada motorcycle taxi became the backbone of daily mobility. They are informal, unregulated, and dangerous, but for millions of Lagosians who can't afford cars and aren't served by formal transit, they are the only option. The state government has repeatedly tried to ban Okadas from major routes, triggering public outcry every time, but the reality is that without them, the city simply doesn't move. According to the traffic research, Lagos consistently ranks among the worst cities in the world for commute times, with many residents spending 3 to 5 hours per day just getting to and from work. Despite all of this, the fragmentation, the congestion, the complexity, Lagos works. Not efficiently, not always comfortably, but it works. It generates more economic activity than most African nations combined. It produces music, fashion, film, and food that is reshaping global culture through Afrobeats, Nollywood, and Afrofusion cuisine. Lagos is confusing because it was never designed to be understood from the outside. It was built in real time by millions of people making millions of individual decisions layered on top of a colonial infrastructure that was never meant to serve them. It is chaotic, it is exhausting, it is dense and fragmented, and sprawling and contradictory. And there is no other city quite like it on earth. Thanks for watching.